Paul Ream with you, and also Brandt Heitman. Brandt is with Bis Commodities, and you hear Brandt on KWMT and others from Bis Commodities as they help us with the analysis from day to day, and he's going to give you a little bit of analysis today as well. Brandt, thanks for, first of all, BIS being a sponsor of Feed the Farmer this week, and thanks for spending this time with me on the interview.
It's good to be here. Thanks for having me, Paul.
So let's start, Brandt, by talking about what's been going on in the last couple of weeks. A couple of weeks ago, President Trump had what he called Liberation Day as far as the tariffs are concerned. And before we started today, you said the market is not bullish, but it's also not bearish. So tell me what that means.
Well, I think I'd start with going back to that Liberation Day and Trump putting tariffs on China and other countries around the world. We would have expected much more bearish price action, especially out of our grains because of the export-driven business that we have in soybeans and the way corn has held up really well with exports. You would have maybe wondered if they would have gotten hit. And on the demand side of things, it would seem fundamentally very bearish. After that news came out, there was no shortage of volatility, but the grains in the ag complex held up relatively well, not pushing to new lows. And actually, since then, corn has rallied roughly 20 cents, old crop and new crop, and beans are up, I believe, beans are up 30 to 40 cents as of today. So it's kind of had a little bit of the opposite effect of what we would have expected. And then if you look at the broader commodity complex, aside from oil and the energy markets, a lot of the other commodities have been holding their own as well, with the broader 2-year basing pattern in the Bloomberg Commodity Index still holding those lows, not pushing new lows. And in my opinion, still kind of making a bit of a rounded bottom base on the charts. And to me, the technicals are showing a little different story than what the fundamentals would maybe portray. And we got a lot of work left to do on the bean charts, but as far as corn goes, you start triggering some of these technical levels, and we probably need a fundamental story, maybe such as weather and this upcoming growing season coming forward, that to get those technicals breached. And then if that happens, you can start getting some more fund activity on the long side. So that's why I say it's not necessarily bullish. We're really lacking any kind of bullish story to maybe breach those technical areas that could get this market really going. But it's not nearly as bearish as what we would have expected. And we failed to make new lows and, fix or hit some of those technical levels on the downside to turn this into a bear market, or continue the bear trend with the tariffs.
Brandt Heitman is our guest from BIS Commodities, one of the sponsors for Feed the Farmer this week. And what's going on in the world currencies also has a bearing on what we're talking about here, correct?
Yes, and that's another thing that, we've been talking, a lot of analysts have been talking recession coming up, and especially with these tariffs, you're kind of throwing the whole world into a global recession. And I think there's been a few things that have had a little bit opposite effect than maybe what people have anticipated. But right now, it appears that in general, a lot of capital is coming out of the US dollar, out of some US treasuries, whereas we thought maybe interest rates would have come down. If you go into a recession, sometimes you see a flight to quality, such as the dollar or US treasuries. We're not seeing that. And actually, we're seeing some of these other global currencies find their footing. You go back to when the trade war with Mexico and Canada first started, that little spat, we had what looked like a bit of a failed breakdown on those charts. And the Canadian dollar has been doing nothing but go up since then. That's a fairly correlated currency to commodities. The Australian dollar is starting to do the same. It tanked here 2 weeks ago, and it's retraced all of that move plus more. to the upside. The Mexican peso looks like it's got a basing pattern, which we have plenty of corn exports to Mexico. I would think that would be supportive for our markets. By no means any of that could necessarily be bullish, but obviously the Mexican peso going up doesn't hurt our exports too much. The Brazil real has found its footing and at least is holding support, and that helps keep our soybeans a little more competitive on the global front versus South American soybeans. So in these currency markets, we're not seeing a strong dollar. In fact, we're seeing a very weak dollar. We're at multi-year lows, and we're going to see if we can hold these lows in that dollar complex. It's made up of a lot of the global currencies, most heavily the euro. But the general theme right now, the way I see it and the way the gold market has been acting, is we've got money coming out of some of these U.S. Equity markets, the dollar in particular, and the stock market, and we are maybe seeing that money go into gold. And if as a commodity producer, if we're lucky, maybe we see it find a home in some of these commodities if we can get a bull story behind them too. So going back to that whole, we're probably going to need some kind of a weather issue to ignite the fire, give us some kind of a spark. But once you can get that, you can really get some trend followers on board.
Well, certainly, at least on the surface here today in our conversation, I hear farmers maybe breathing a little bit of a sigh of relief with this news that you're giving. And I will mention that we're doing this interview on Wednesday, April 16th, because we are talking about commodities. Things can change quickly, and peace of mind is a big part of what BIS Commodities wants to give to farmers in the expertise that you have. And we have the information here, biscommodities.com. Their phone number is 319-362-2325. Brandt, BRANDT, at biscommodities.com if you want to get a hold of Brandt. Again, thanks for sponsoring Feed the Farmer this week. Brandt, you and, of course, the owner of the company, Brad Dennis, and we look forward to having your information on a regular basis on KWMT.
Sounds good. Thanks for having us. And you mentioned what we like to do to give guys peace of mind. And no matter, the thing is everybody can have an opinion about the markets, but the bottom line is when you get into certain resistance levels on the charts or certain risk reward points, you want to have different tools in your toolbox to put that floor underneath things, give yourself some kind of peace of mind going into a weather season and a planting season that you really can't control.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Paul Ream reporting for Feed the Farmer and KWMT.